Well, that's how I felt after watching this movie. Good lord. I'm gonna hope that I could do half the things that Tom Cruise does at age 60. So let's review The Goat of Action's Final Reckoning. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Buddies in Blockbuster. I'm your host, AJ, or the Brown Tom Cruise, aka the Brown EthanHunt. And we're here to review Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Wow, that was something in terms of just Tom Cruise's performance, I've got to say. Just the amount of hard work that this guy puts in. He's 62 years old. I've got to give him a huge shout out with all the stunts, all the hard work, and the effort that he puts in for any of his movies is just top level. I think he's one of the goats of the action genre, and he delivers that same kind of vibe in this age for this movie. So it was kind of a good closure, but my initial reaction, is it like a perfect movie in this franchise? I don't think so, but as a fan of Tom Cruise, as a fan of this franchise, it was a good send-off in a way. I don't think everybody's going to feel that way. I still believe the first part as well as Fallout is probably best in the franchise, but I will say this, that this part, it was supposed to be part 2 of Dead Reckoning, but they did the final. I definitely feel that this part is better than the previous part in terms of the execution in a couple of areas and keeping on edge, and the hook is definitely there. But it also faces the same problem and issues that I had with the previous movie, which is the villain. I'll get to that. But if you're a fan of the franchise and if you're a Tom Cruise fan, you're just gonna love this movie because you have the action, you have him running. Oh god, there's a lot of running. I don't know how he has the stamina to do whatever he's doing. And the stunts in this movie, good lord, it's next level. You've seen the trailer, you've seen the behind the scenes and shared, and the cast that surrounds him also plays a good role. There's a couple of emotional scenes here due to the choices that Ethan needs to make that carries the storyline, but the setbacks in my mind is in the runtime, because this is a 2 hour and 51 minutes, close to 3 hours. You do feel it. Probably for the normal audience, you're going to feel that, okay, this is being dragged a bit. I was just interested in it mainly because I know this is final. This is probably the closure that we need. So I was in it for the ride. Either the action sequences or the planning that's being explained during the movie should have been cut short. So you're gonna feel that and you're gonna notice those components. But if you just want to go in, enjoy it because you know this is the kind of the final chapter of the series, you're gonna have a good time. But keep in mind, there's a lot of conveniences that needs to go, as I could see a couple of scenes where we're kind of dwelling into the Fast and Furious vibe here, because you got to close your eyes and just roll with it, because you know Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, and I know he has a billion lives, but during a couple of scenes I'm like, this guy should have died 10 times by now. And it's not that believable, but again, conveniences, right? And in terms of the story, it picks off right after the last part, but the main goal is to destabilize and destroy this AI that's most likely going to take over the world, nuclear power and all that stuff. And it's the mission to get to a couple of components so that we can basically destroy the AI. But we also have Gabriel, who's the villain from the previous edition, trying to get his hands and control the AI. Right? So that back and forth is basically the movie. I don't want to spoil much for it. For the folks who have not followed the franchise, you may get lost because there's a lot of references to the previous movies, although they do a good job in kind of showing flashbacks and the backstory of how things got to this place. The action sequences, I mean, that's always going to be a standard for this franchise. I think they just took it up a notch a bit too much in a way, but all of those stunts, as you know, and this is nothing new, Tom Cruise has done it by himself. It's realistic. Less amount of CGI used in those components, and that's so true. My hat's off to this guy. Now, in terms of the negatives, yes, you're gonna feel like this is long. You know, that's going to be a thing. It's close to 3 hours, so you're going to feel like, oh god. That's mainly because there's two action sequences. One needs to go to the submarine thing. Although that's long, I was on edge for the most part, because the stuff that he needs to go to get to point A and to B, oh my god, you're just on edge. But as it prolongs and you got to close your eyes on a couple of things because there's, again, conveniences put there, that was stretched a bit too much. And then the last climax component where, yes, the stunt with the whole planes and stuff like that Tom Cruise is doing is awesome. That was also stretched and dragged a bit. You're going to feel like, okay, have this huge thing going. Tom Cruise and Gabriel are just playing with the planes here. So, and the other piece is maybe because I've watched all the Mission Impossible movies, I don't think I need to know every bits of the details in the plan explained in every scene. That was done a lot in this movie. I mean, I get the point. Maybe you're trying to dim it down for the audience who's not following the franchise and stuff like that. But for me, as a guy who's watched every other part, it was like, okay, we get it. Just move on. Just go to the next, right? I feel it would be a lot more fun for the audience to kind of think through it and figure it out. And then again, about conveniences, right? Based on the Mission Impossible franchise, it's like we have a bomb, and Benji is like, Ethan, we have 4 minutes. You gotta get the thing. And in Ethan's mind, I'm pretty sure he's like, 4 minutes? You mean 40? So I'm just gonna do my Top Gun stunts and take my own time while you guys figure it out. You're gonna feel that in multiple occasions in this movie, and there's a lot of scenes where you believe that, okay, this guy should have died a long time ago. How the hell is he alive? How the hell did he get this parachute when the bad guy, Gabriel, literally told there's only one, but there's another parachute. All in all, I feel it's a good movie for a Tom Cruise and a fan of this franchise. I just had a good time with the mindset of, okay, this is probably the last series that Tom Cruise is going to be associated with. Now, maybe they might have spin-offs and all that stuff, but I think this was more of a closure kind of movie. But in terms of recommendation, I would suggest if you're in that bucket of being a fan of this franchise, you should go and experience this in the theater. Now, for the folks who are not being following the franchise, you might think this is a bit longer, so I totally get it if you would skip this piece and wait for it to come on the streaming platform. For the folks who watch Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, where do you rank this movie in the franchise? Is it better than the last one? Let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and share.